Why is Donald Trump so pissed off at India after Operation Sindoor? At first, he didn't care. When news broke that India had launched a high-precision military operation deep inside Pakistan, Trump, like many American politicians, shrugged it off. It looked like just another border flare-up between two old rivals, something they've been doing for decades. But then came the classified briefings. Behind closed doors, America's defense and intelligence officials laid out the real story of what happened during Operation Sindoor. And that changed everything. Trump was told that India hadn't just struck Pakistan. India had shattered the myth of American-built invincibility, exposed decades of U.S. investment, and compromised strategic assets that the U.S. was counting on for future missions in Iran, Afghanistan, and Central Asia. Since that moment, Trump hasn't been able to shake the hate for India. And here's why. For over 20 years, the United States fought what would become the longest war in its history, in Afghanistan. A war that cost trillions of dollars, thousands of lives, and ended with the Taliban walking right back into power as the U.S. retreated in chaos. But behind the scenes, this war was being propped up by a secret alliance with Pakistan. The U.S. quietly depended on Pakistan's military and intelligence networks. Pakistani air bases like Shahbaz, Jacobabad, Maswar, Karachi, and others were heavily upgraded with U.S. funds, used for drone launches, surveillance, logistics, and possibly as forward bases for contingency plans against Iran or rogue Afghan factions. There are even credible OSINT whispers that low-yield nuclear devices, tactical gear, and deep-sea too, command and control, installations were maintained inside hardened Pakistani military facilities with American funding or cooperation. And then India happened. In a span of just 88 hours, India executed Operation Sindoor, a coordinated, multi-layered, precision missile campaign that tore through Pakistan's military infrastructure like a knife through butter. But this wasn't just a retaliation. India penetrated multiple layers of air defense, deployed loitering munitions, glide vehicles, and deep-strike missiles, neutralized underground C-2 facilities, some believed to have been co-developed with U.S. funds, targeted terror safe havens under ISI protection, and most shockingly, eliminated the killers of American journalist Daniel Pearl, who had been hiding in Karachi for over 2 decades, protected in ISI-run safe houses. Yes, India did what the United States couldn't do in 20 years. In 88 hours, India destroyed the very assets the U.S. had failed to even touch after 2 decades of operations and drone wars. For Trump, this was a brutal reality check. The illusion of Pakistani invincibility, which the U.S. helped construct, had been obliterated in a weekend. And the American-built F-16s, meant to defend those very sites, failed completely. Not one successful interception, not one deterrent sortie. Iran saw this, so did the Taliban, and now the entire region knows American allies can be penetrated. American infrastructure is not untouchable, and India, without U.S. support, just exposed it all. But Trump's rage runs deeper than just optics. The Pakistani military, which had already been losing its grip due to rising TTP, Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan, and BLA, Balochistan Liberation Army attacks, was now fully humiliated. Many analysts believe CIA-linked proxies may have been quietly supporting these insurgents, not to collapse Pakistan, but to destabilize it just enough. Why? Because Balochistan is a gold mine. It holds vast reserves of rare earths, natural gas, lithium, and other strategic minerals that are essential for everything from electric vehicles to advanced weaponry. And in a weakened, IMF-dependent Pakistan, the U.S. could force cheap extraction deals, cut China out of Gwadar, and secure critical supply chains. But India ruined the plan. By exposing Pakistan's military vulnerability and destroying key facilities, India has delayed or even derailed this entire U.S. strategy. And that's where the real anger comes from. You see, Pakistan wasn't just America's messy ally, it was America's backup plan. With Afghanistan unstable, Iran defiant, and Central Asia in flux, the U.S. had hoped to maintain forward operating leverage from hardened Pakistani military sites. India's missiles didn't just destroy runways, they blew up America's Plan B. The strike tarnished the credibility of US-supplied weapons. It showed that decades of military assistance, joint training, and black-budget defense projects couldn't stop a determined regional power from striking at will. And now there's talk, unconfirmed but persistent, that some classified US assets, perhaps surveillance hardware, or even tactical nuke components, were damaged in the strikes. Even if it's just speculation, the perception alone is catastrophic. He's cozying up to General Asim Munir, the Pakistani army chief. There are reports of back-channel offers, defense aid, and reconstruction packages being discussed. Trump wants the Pakistani military to get back on its feet quickly, not because of Pakistan, but because he needs that strategic buffer in place. Trump is pissed because India disrupted the balance of power in the region, without US consultation, without seeking permission, and without relying on American intelligence. It showed that India can independently shape the regional order. That's threatening, not just to Pakistan, but to US dominance. And let's not forget, India brought justice to Daniel Pearl. The same Daniel Pearl whose brutal execution in 2002 became a defining moment of the US war on terror. For 20 years, America failed to bring his killers to justice, despite drone strikes, renditions, and pressure on Pakistan. India did it in 88 hours. That fact alone is enough to cause heartburn across Washington. So yes, Trump is pissed. Because Operation Sindoor didn't just strike targets in Pakistan, it struck America's ego, its regional strategy, and its illusion of control. It exposed the cracks in Washington's long-standing plans and showed the world that a rising power like India doesn't need to wait for permission anymore. It also sent a clear message. Terrorism will be answered, no matter who's protecting it, whether it's Pakistan's ISI or America's deep state. In just 88 hours, India did what the US couldn't do in 20 years. And for a man like Donald Trump, who thrives on deals, dominance, and image, that is unacceptable. That is why he can't let it go. That is why Trump is so pissed off at India. If India becomes truly powerful, it threatens something far bigger than just Pakistan or China. It threatens the very core of American global supremacy, built over the last 80 years on one thing: the dollar. Today, India stands as a rising giant, an economic, military, and technological powerhouse with global influence. But it's not rising alone. India is part of BRICS, a growing alliance that includes Russia and China, two of the most direct challengers to American power. And now, BRICS is expanding, inviting countries from Africa, the Middle East, and Latin America to join what's becoming a full-scale movement against Western hegemony. The BRICS nations are pushing to shift global trade away from the US dollar, whether through BRICS plus currency proposals, rupee yuan oil trade, or alternative payment systems like SBFS or CIPS. If that happens, the US loses its biggest weapon: the ability to print money, sanction enemies, and control the flow of global finance. And here's the threat: India is the linchpin. If India, the world's fastest-growing major economy, joins this push at full force, alongside China and Russia, the world no longer needs the US dollar. It no longer needs the American-led system. That's not just an economic shift, that's the collapse of American global power as we know it. For the US, the rise of China was already an existential problem. It lost manufacturing, lost tech control, lost leverage. And it's still trying to recover from that. A second Asian superpower rising, this time a democracy like India, could seal America's fate. India has the manpower, the market size, the tech brainpower, and now, the military resolve as seen in Operation Sindoor. It's no longer a junior partner. It's not asking for permission. It's acting with intent, striking with precision, and reshaping narratives. For the first time, Washington is realizing India is not under its control. And that's terrifying. Because if India rises the way China did, or faster, smarter, and more independently, it will not only dominate the South, but influence Africa, Central Asia, Southeast Asia, and even Europe. Its success would inspire other nations to break free from Western dependency. It would accelerate the multipolar world, where US influence becomes just one of many. That would be the final nail in the coffin for America's era of dominance, an era that, in the broader arc of history, lasted for less than a century. And Washington knows it. That's why, no matter what's said in public, no matter how many handshakes or summits, the US will never want India to truly succeed, not at the cost of its own supremacy. It will fund Pakistan, destabilize regions, manipulate narratives, and weaponize alliances, anything to contain India's rise. Because this time, it's not just about winning a war. It's about preventing the collapse of an empire,